After the loss by Vice President Kamala Harris to Donald Trump in the 2024 election, many African-American women are feeling betrayed by increased minority support for Donald Trump. Black women are saying that they are stepping back. This is an article from the Associated Press from November 24, 2024. I'm historian and national political commentator Michael Imhotep, reporting for the African History Network. Tedja Smith is an African-American woman who was interviewed for this piece from the Associated Press, and she laughed at the idea of joining another Women's March on Washington. As an African-American woman, she could not see herself helping to replicate the largest act of resistance against then-President Donald Trump's first term in office in January of 2017. Even in an election this year where Donald Trump questioned his opponent's race, held rallies featuring racist insults, and falsely claimed that black Haitian immigrants from Ohio were eating residents' pets. He said at the debate with Vice President Kamala Harris, they're eating the dogs and cats. He did not just win a second term. He became the first Republican in 2 decades to clinch the popular vote, although by a small margin. It's going to be about 1.6% or so is the margin of victory for Donald Trump. And it's the smallest margin of victory in many recent election cycles. Tedja Smith says, "It's like the people have spoken, and this is what America looks like." She's a Los Angeles-based founder of the advocacy social media agency Get Social. She goes on to say, and there's not too much more fighting that you're going to be able to do without losing your own sanity. Now, after Donald Trump was declared the winner over Vice President Kamala Harris, many politically engaged African-American women said they were so dismayed by the outcome that they were reassessing but not completely abandoning. After Donald Trump was declared the winner over Vice President Kamala Harris, many politically engaged black women said they were so dismayed by the outcome that they were reassessing but not completely abandoning their enthusiasm for electoral politics and movement organizing. Vice President Kamala Harris' loss spurred a wave of African-American women across social media resolving to prioritize themselves before giving so much to a country that over and over again has shown its indifference to their own needs and concerns. We know that African-American women oftentimes carry much of the work of getting out the vote in their own communities. Associated Press Votecast, which is a survey of more than 120,000 voters, found that 6 in 10 black women said the future of democracy in the United States was the single most important factor for their vote in 2024, a higher share than for other demographic groups. But now, with Donald Trump set to return to office in 2 months, some black women are renewing calls to emphasize rest, focus on mental health, and become more selective about what fight they lend their organizing power to. Let us know what you think about this article. Are you focused more on African-American issues than saving America? We encourage you to read this piece from the Associated Press. Now, LaTosha Brown, the co-founder of the national voting rights group Black Voters Matter, and I've been on Roland Martin Unfiltered before with LaTosha Brown, she says America is going to have to save herself. LaTosha Brown compared African-American women's presence in social justice movements as, quote, core strategists and core organizers, end quote, to the North Star, known as the most consistent and dependable star in the galaxy because of its seemingly fixed position in the sky. People can rely on African-American women to lead change, LaTosha Brown said, but the next 4 years will look different. She went on to say, quote, "That's not a Herculean task, that's for us. We don't want that title. I have no goals to be a martyr for a nation that cares nothing about me," end quote. Now, AP Votecast paints a clear picture of black women's concerns. Black female voters were most likely to say that democracy was the single most important factor for their vote compared to other motivating factors such as high prices or abortion. More than 7 in 10 African American female voters said they were, quote, very concerned, end quote, that selecting Donald Trump would lead the nation toward authoritarianism, while only about 2 in 10 said this about Vice President Kamala Harris. About 9 in 10, or 90% of African American female voters, supported Vice President Kamala Harris in 2024, according to AP Votecast, similar to the share that backed Democratic nominee Joe Biden in 2020. Donald Trump received support from more than half of white voters who made up the vast majority of his coalition in both years. And we know in 2024, 53% of white women voted for Donald Trump, even though he will most likely try to enact a nationwide ban on abortion, possibly using the Comstock Act of 1873. Like voters overall, African American women were most likely to say the economy and jobs were the most important issues facing the country, with about 1/3 saying that. But they were more likely than many other groups to say that abortion and racism were the top issues, and much less likely than other groups to say immigration was the top issue. Politically engaged African American women said they don't plan to continue positioning themselves in the vertebrae of the backbone of America's democracy. The growing movement prompting black women to withdraw is a shift from history where they are often present and at the forefront of political and social change. One of the earliest examples is the women's suffrage movement that led to the ratification in 1920 of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which gave women the right to vote. However, African American women were prevented from voting for decades afterwards because of Jim Crow laws such as literacy tests, poll taxes, and laws that blocked the grandchildren of slaves from voting. That starts in Louisiana in 1898 when Louisiana rewrites their state constitution. It not only imposes poll taxes and literacy tests, but also imposes a grandfather clause, which stated that prior to 1867, if your grandfather could not vote, then that means you can't vote. Most likely your grandfather could not vote because he was a slave. Now, most African American women could not vote until the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which is the result of the modern day civil rights movement. In his 2024 campaign, Donald Trump called for leveraging federal money to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in government programs and discussions of race, gender, or sexual orientation in schools. His rhetoric on immigration, including false claims that black Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, were eating cats and dogs, drove support for his plan to deport millions of people. Nicole Lewis, who is an Alabama-based therapist who specializes in treating black women's stress, said she is aware that black women withdrawing from social impact movements could have a fallout. But she also hopes that it forces a reckoning for the nation to understand the consequences of not standing in solidarity with black women. Now, Latasha Brown said a reckoning might be exactly what the country needs, but it's a reckoning for everyone else. Black women, she said, did their job when they supported Vice President Kamala Harris in droves in hopes they could thwart the massive changes expected under Donald Trump. She said, quote, "This ain't our reckoning. I don't feel no guilt," end quote. So tell us what you think. Post your comments here on the African History Network and on my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. Are you feeling that you're not going to be engaged in politics anymore, or not in national politics, but you will be engaged at the local level? Or do you think that we still have to be engaged at the national level as well as the local level and focus on seizing power? Anything negatively that happens, like Donald Trump's tariffs that are going to be imposed, or the economy collapsing, or things of this nature, many African American women will probably say, don't blame us, we voted for the black woman. And that's the same thing I'm going to say. This is your fault. The people who voted for Donald Trump, this is your fault. Also, be sure to check out our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and take advantage of our Black Friday weekend promotion sale, where you get our 12-week online history course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. It's on sale right now, 40% off. It's only $60. This is a 12-week online history class that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. I teach this class on Saturdays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Our next class is Saturday, November 30th, 2024, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Follow us on Facebook at the African History Network, YouTube, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP, and my Instagram page, Michael Imhotep. Listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And watch me on Fridays, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Remember, right now, it's corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever.